Okay, we are live. So thank you everybody for being here. This is Julie Oakes with the Results Realty Group at Layer Realty Partners. And we're here live today with Dawn Porthouse, and she is the owner of Liberty Tax in Franklin, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for being here today, Dawn. I'm so glad. We actually tried this the other day and we just had so many technical difficulties. We just kind of put it off for another day. So we're trusting that everything's going to be fabulous today. So
Definitely.
thank you so much, Dawn, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I want to, let's see, just have to turn up my volume a little bit. Okay. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Your volume is kind of, maybe it's your volume. It's a little bit low. I can, but
Maybe I'm talking low. Can you hear it better now?
yeah, that's better.
Okay. That was just me.
Excellent. Excellent. So, so we're here to get to know you today. Mostly, we want to hear about Dawn. We also want to hear about Liberty Tax and how that came to fruition. But yeah, we'd like to get to know you today, and I have some questions for you.
Sure.
And if I kind of stump you, if you're not sure what to say, that's totally okay. We can, put that on the shelf and move to a next question. I just want you to feel comfortable and enjoy.
Sounds great.
So, so first thing I want to ask you is like, where are you from originally, and where did you grow up, and like your family?
I'm originally from Fall River, Massachusetts. That's where I was born and raised. I have a sister and two brothers, and a son and two grandchildren.
So you have one sister and two brothers? You have three siblings. Wow.
Oh, yeah. We're an interesting dynamic.
That's pretty neat because, not a lot of people have that many siblings. That's what we have in our house. But so two boys and two girls in the family. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a good time. We still do.
That's great. I think I remember you mentioning before something about Fall River because you had a knowledge of, because I'm not that far from Fall River. And so that's pretty neat. That's right, because you went to BCC, right? You went to Bristol Community College.
Yep, I went to BCC. It was the first school I ever, after high school.
That's what it was. That's awesome. I love that. So what did your parents do growing up? What did they do for a living?
My mom was a hairdresser. That's what we used to call it back then. I don't know what the right term now. But my dad was worked in maintenance at the War College and did a bunch of different things at the Naval War College in Newport.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, retired and was director at that point. So he worked his way up the ladder.
That must have been something to work in Newport.
I did that for a few years. That was an interesting. That's why I don't get excited about going to Newport. I've been there so much.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I get that. I really have an affinity for Newport, and it's just one of my favorite places to go and walk around.
Yeah, that was one of my hangouts when I was a kid.
That's pretty cool.
Plus working there, I spent a lot of time in Newport growing up.
So you probably don't have the affinity for it that I do.
Yeah, not really. It's like sort of been there, done that.
Kind of old hat, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm from the Midwest. I'm from,
that's right, yeah.
like a landlocked state in the Midwest. So, I mean, we had lakes, but there's just nothing. I just have a real appreciation for the ocean. And
Horseneck Beach is the other place we used to go to a lot. So
yeah,
it's fun. You don't realize how close you are until you move. When I moved to Bellingham, it was sort of weird not having beaches and stuff nearby or water.
Yep. So that was going to be my next question. So So you went to college and you went to the Fall River. There was I don't know if they had as many campuses then as they
No,
do
back
now.
then, that was a long time ago, but back then it was only one.
Okay, okay.
That was
So,
it.
so you went to BCC in Fall River, and then what happened? Did you end up
Uh,
going to a university or state school?
no, I ended up getting married, had my son, then went back to school for my bachelor's part-time, and I did that at UMass Dartmouth.
Oh, nice.
Took me a long while to get it, but I got it.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, I have that on my list. I still haven't finished mine, but it's on my list. Whether I use it or not, it's just something I want to do for me, just
No,
to sort
that's
of
what I do.
check it
I
off the list. Yep. And
not a bad
that's
thing.
totally okay. So what brought you to Bellingham?
My husband had a job in Westboro, so we were trying to pick a place in between where I was working at the time, which is Providence, and he
Mm-hmm.
was working in Westboro. So that's how and we bought it during the housing crisis back 20 years ago. So
Yep.
not it was a seller's market. No, it was a seller's market back then. So there wasn't a lot on the market.
Yep.
I just walked into the house, liked the house. It was nothing we wanted. Had nothing we wanted in it. But
Really?
yeah, it was a slab ranch. Didn't want a slab, didn't want a ranch.
Yep. Yep. But you
But
needed something.
we needed something and there wasn't much out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to rent anymore. I had enough of renting.
So is that the same place where you are now?
Hmm.
And have in the past years, have you guys kind of made it your own?
Oh yeah, we built a garage that's bigger than my house. My
Nice.
neighbors thought I was building a new house.
Well, that's honestly that's a really great thing to do. I was just talking with a mortgage colleague yesterday. We were talking about renovation loans and how helpful those can be with things like that. And uh, I mean, you might be done with your house by now, but that's
Oh
what
no. I don't know if is it ever done?
that's you know that's one of the things I said yesterday. There's always something you can do to sort of personalize it, make it more what you want, but uh, and especially since the pandemic, so many people that's what people are doing because they're home so much. So they're thinking we might as well enjoy the space if we have to be here. So let's make it more like we want. So that's that's not a bad thing. Well, I'm glad the universe sort of brought you to Bellingham.
Oh, me too. It's been a
So
wild ride.
so how did the Liberty Tax come about?
Well, I was working in Watertown for about 10 years. My previous life, I worked in research, so on the administrative side. And then I went to school for my MPA, Master's in Public Administration at Framingham State, and I was still working in Watertown. And then, I don't know, about a couple years ago, a friend of mine was diagnosed with a terminal illness that I worked with, and it made me realize that life is too short. So I went back for my MBA at Babson. And then I just decided I didn't want to work at the place I was working anymore. It just wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. So I left my job and finished school full time and was looking for part-time work, started working in a Liberty tax office and ended up buying this one a year later. And it was an interesting, wasn't where I was planning on going.
But it sounds like it kind of fit the bill for the time. And do you, here's a weird question. Do you
Okay.
enjoy it?
Yeah, I love it. I
Yeah.
actually do love it. I love the challenge and I love working with people. That's one of the best things is when that's what the pandemic really put a damper on is I didn't get to see a lot of my clients face to face. And usually I'm in here talking and it's like doing taxes is one thing, but I like the interaction and trying to help people. That's the best part of doing the job.
I agree. That's the same for me. People just kind of energize me. And I mean, when we were going through that, literally, I think I only stopped by the office, what, 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
and it very briefly. So it was, yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Took all the fun out of it.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see how that would be the case. Speaking of that, what do you do for fun?
Okay, outside of the pandemic, we love to go uh, camping.
Yeah,
That's usually traveling, and camping is what I love to do.
but what kind of camping do you do?
I glamp.
Yes. And
I,
how do you guys glamp?
we have a motorhome that we attach a car to and we just travel. Yeah, I did the tent thing years ago. I grew up with that. I do not want to sleep in another tent on another rock again.
But how perfect is it when you have your own sort of mobile campsite and you can just go wherever you want? That's
Oh,
just like the dream. That's like the life.
that's what we had planned on before I even bought this. That was our plan, was just travel.
Yep.
Because we both, if it was up to Chris and I, we'd be on the road full time.
That's pretty awesome. That would be a lot of adventure.
There's so much to see that it's just every time we go somewhere new, there's just more and more places that I want to go and just see the sights in the U.S.
So thus far with your travels in the RV, what's your favorite place you've been so far?
Well, it was before the RV was Arizona, but in the RV was South Dakota.
Wow.
We went up to Mount Rushmore and all that, but we didn't get to stay at the Badlands as much as I would have liked. I didn't realize how gorgeous they were.
So I've it sounds vaguely familiar, but what are the Badlands?
It's not like a desert, but it's just like we didn't get out and touch it, which I wish we would have now. But it was all these different kind of it was open space, nothing was there, and it looked very deserted, sort of like a desert, but not really a desert. And it had just these gorgeous dunes. I can't think of a good term for it, but it was one of those places we've heard about and was like, yeah, 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 we'll go. And driving back, we were like, oh, I didn't know we could stop in here and go hiking.
Wow. So
So
are there colors out
oh yeah,
there?
there's all different kind of colors. It's hard to describe, to be honest. When I first saw it, I think our mouths were wide open, just how gorgeous it was. There's just so much in the West that is just unbelievable. You grow up in the East in New England, mountains. Yeah, been there, done that. But when you go out and see deserts, and it's just incredible, and all the open spaces.
See, I'm still like a little kid with all of that stuff, I think, because where I grew up, it was I don't know if I want to say boring, but I grew up in a very small town in the Midwest. Everything where I grew up was set up in a nice, neat grid, as opposed to New England, where it's, I'll take the second exit off the rotary, bear left, bear right. No, it's everything where I grew up is in a nice, neat grid. And frequently at a stop sign, you can't see if you can go or not because the corn growing is too
Yeah.
high. So I'm fascinated with ocean, mountains. I'm fascinated with all of it. Even though I've seen some of it, I'm still fascinated with it. I think because it's not something, like when I was growing up, we couldn't take a long weekend up to New Hampshire, and see the
I think we all
awesome
want
autumn
something.
colors.
I think we all want something different than what we have.
That could very well be. Okay, how would you say you ended up in the career you're currently working, from doing administrative work to owning this franchise?
Well, I've always wanted to own my own business. That's something I started a few over the years, but didn't find my passion.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, when I was approached to buy it, I thought, I looked at my husband and I'm like, do I want to do this? And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna try it because I don't want to look at my life and say should have, could have, would have.
Right.
So we bought it. It's been three. Will be my third tax season.
That's fabulous. So
Mm.
that leads into my next question, which I think you kind of already answered, but would you consider yourself a risk taker?
Yeah, but I also weigh the benefits and
Mm-hmm.
the good and the bad with taking a risk. Some risks are worth taking. Other risks are. I usually think about it before I take a risk.
There's nothing wrong with that. With that, who would you say are your mentors?
My parents and my grandparents.
That's awesome. What's your favorite book or movie?
Oh boy, I haven't read a book for leisure in so long. I wouldn't even remember one to read. It's one of the habits of going to school a lot is you get out of the habit of reading, and
Reading for pleasure. Yeah.
I
What
haven't done
about a
that.
movie?
My favorite is still Abbott and Costello movies.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those will always be my favorite.
That's cool. All right, I'm going to ask you.
Uh-oh.
This is my favorite question to ask. And anybody who's watching the recording or anything will have heard me say this before. But what's something about Dawn that people would be surprised to know?
Well, up until a couple of years ago, I was a huge NASCAR fan.
Oh, that's very cool. Like, did you guys travel
We
to
went to
events?
and I wasn't at the beginning because when I first met Chris, he was a huge NASCAR fan and not my kind of thing. But when I met him and we were going, I was like, well, I might as well pay attention. So I had picked my driver that I would root for that was the nemesis of his driver.
No kidding. Was that
Oh yeah.
intentional or just
It
because
was
that was who?
intentional. No, it was intentional. And then after that, and like we had season tickets to Loudon, and he would always take somebody from my family because I thought it was a waste of time. I just was just like the driver because of that reason. And I went
That's
up
funny.
one time with him, and I was hooked.
That's
I
awesome.
loved it. And unfortunately, my driver retired, and so did Chris's. So that sort of took all the fun out of going to the races.
Yep.
But yeah,
It
we've been to Kentucky, Loudon, Bristol, Tennessee. Yeah, and drove. We've got to ride around the tracks. We've had hot passes where you go down into the pits.
no kidding. That
Yeah,
sounds really cool.
and most people look at me like, really? I know in my last job it was always Dawn, really?
What's nothing wrong with that. I know that where I grew up when I was younger, there was a place not far away. A couple of times growing up, I went to the local speedway, and it was pretty fun.
It's
I
a whole different world.
I I don't think, at least for me, it would be something that I would enjoy watching on television. But that's how I am with baseball too. I don't like watching it on television, but if I'm there, it's it's a really great time.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think
I
car
never
racing
watched it
is
on
like
TV.
that too.
I never watched it on TV. The only time I watched it once was when my driver was in the fight for the championship,
Yep.
and he won by a nose. And that was like I think the only race I watched on TV because I think they're boring on TV. But when
Yeah.
you're there and the sounds and the smells and
But there's
it's
a whole community of people who are gigantic NASCAR fans, right?
yeah, and we've met people from all walks of life, males, females, and they were some of the nicest people in any sports that I've ever met.
Sounds
Majority of
really
them were
fun.
really cool. They're just there to have a good time and not obnoxious. Usually we just You know, they would be rooting for, like, we sat on the side of this group one time. They were rooting for my driver, and when they didn't like Chris's driver, so I was with them booing his driver.
That's funny. That's funny.
Like,
So
it's fun.
when you did that, did you take the RV? Did you have the RV then?
A few of them we've had the RV. We had campers. We had trailers before we
Okay.
bought the RV.
So
So we've
when
camped
you
it.
do that, what, like, how does that work? Is there a place nearby where you park and stay, or do they allow you? They probably don't allow you in the actual parking lot, right?
Some of
Like,
the
just
tracks have camping on the campus. Like Charlotte has a huge campground.
no
There's
kidding.
and there's some that actually you can camp in the center of the track. So
Wow.
there's a racetrack and in the middle, and that's what I haven't done that yet. But you camp right in the middle of the track.
Wow.
Sit on top of the camper.
No kidding.
I haven't done that. That looked fun. We never got to do that, but we've camped at the track, so we don't have to drive in. We're just and they don't charge you the arm and the legs of other sports, so people are there
Yep.
for the race.
Well, that would definitely draw me. That's, it's professional sports are just asinine in what they charge for ticket prices.
Well, even the tickets or the parking. I mean, you go to Gillette and they charge an arm and a leg for parking.
Right.
You go to Loudon and they don't charge for parking. So
Yeah.
but it's fun.
That's nice. That makes it accessible for so many more people. So, what do you think? And I know this is speculation. What do you think you'll be remembered for 100 years from now?
I probably won't be remembered except for my family.
But what do you think your family will remember you for?
My family remember. I've never thought of that. That is a very interesting question. Um, I never really thought of that.
Okay.
Hopefully it's that we were all, I don't know, if my family's, we're all close. So
Well, that's really good.
family has always been important to all of us. So it's just, hopefully that's what I'll be remembered for. Family came first.
That's awesome. Okay. Now, there it is. How would you describe, if you can recall, the worst ever day in your professional career? And how did you deal with that after the fact and sort of pick yourself back up and keep going?
I try not to focus on all those bad problems. I usually try, if they happen, my philosophy has always been just deal with it and move on and don't dwell on it. So I've tried not to dwell on anything that's bad that's happened. I try to learn from it and just move on to the next thing. So I really can't give a definitive answer of the worst day. I think for work, it's work. To me, it can't compare to a worst day in your personal life.
That's a pretty good answer, I think. Just like overall, I think it's a really
It took me
good
a long
thing.
time to get there. It's just as I've gotten older, I think that's where that comes from.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Because,
so
we're all on a marathon journey. It's not a sprint. And
no,
we're all in our own process of getting better and improving. And
my philosophy
I, I
I
like
think a
that.
lot of it, when my friend had gotten sick, a lot of it changed my whole focus on working, you're killing yourself, and at the end of the day, who's going to remember you but your family? Who's going to
You're
care?
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. A friend of mine that, you know, 4 years ago on one of my children's birthdays, a friend of mine, she passed away very suddenly. And she was very young. She was in her early 30s. She left a husband and 3 children,
Wow.
and literally very out of the blue, totally unexpected. And ever since then, you're right, I have a different perspective. I don't complain about getting older. I don't complain about anything about age, because as far as I'm concerned now, every day that you're able to get older is a gift. It's really a gift. And complaining about it is not going to make your life any better or longer. So
No, I
just be
still like to
grateful.
complain about it, but
What?
I still like to complain about getting older.
I just, I can't do it anymore because I just keep thinking about those children who don't have the, it just, yeah, definitely changes your perspective. Definitely. Um,
Oh, can I put you on hold 1 sec, or is that gonna be a problem?
well, that's okay.
I know we're live, but just give me 1 sec.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. That's okay. We're real life here. I know I have noise in the background too with my family doing what they have to do. So, meanwhile, I'll say hi, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, Dawn will be back in a minute. And I have some more questions for her. So in the meantime, if you don't have a tax preparer or a tax professional and you're in the area, most definitely call on Dawn because she really helped me with mine. She taught me so much this year about how to keep records and categories and so many different ins and outs when you're preparing your taxes. She was so helpful in teaching me a bunch of stuff. So hopefully she will be back soon and we'll talk a little more about that.
Thank you.
she's in her office right now. So thank you guys for your patience.
The joys of owning your own business. You never know when someone's going to walk in.
That's okay. I was just talking about you.
Oh,
In a good way.
good or bad? Good, I hope.
Well, we don't want dead air. No, I was just talking about
Yeah, no.
how much you helped me and how much of course I still have a lot to learn, but I'm not, I'm not aspiring to be you. I just want to make your job easier and better doing taxes, and you just taught me a whole lot this year. So
Well, I think a lot of, which I love to do. I love to teach people because I don't think you should, because you're ultimately responsible for your taxes. So I think responsible people want to know what's going on with it. And it also, when you're doing business returns, it affects you want to know what your profit and loss is on a business.
absolutely. So taking off on that subject, who would you say is your competition and how do you differ from your competition?
Well, there's a lot of, I've got H&R Block, those kind of, people. And then you've got a lot of mom and pops and people that do their own returns. I differ because for me, it's not a corporate owned store. I own the office. I'm here. I like to help people. So it's just, I don't leave you in a lurch. I'll do everything I can to get you the best refund or owe the less taxes that you're entitled to under the law. So there's sometimes I know about deductions and things that people don't, but I don't leave you in a lurch. If you have a question in the middle of the tax year, I'm here. So I can answer those questions or I can assist you with dealing with whatever you need to deal with or find you the right person to deal with if it's not me.
And you're very hands-on, which I really appreciate. So if you hadn't ended up owning your store, what do you think you might be doing?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. It was like one of those things that happen and so it must have been, I just think someone was telling me I need to do this. And I like it. It's
Kind of clicked.
I think I am doing what I, it, it's, I think if I hadn't done this, I don't know what I'd be doing because I mean, I just want to travel. I mean, and if I had to sit home during the pandemic, I probably would have went stir crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's funny.
Unfortunately, I need
Most
to make
people,
money to travel. So
yeah. That's the things that money is a tool that we all need.
yep, definitely.
So what does the typical day look like for you?
A typical day not during tax season. I do bookkeeping, payroll, doing insurances now. I do a lot of different things, but usually I'm at my desk and just working on something for someone. It could be a tax return that in the off season. It could be helping them get their books. It could be consulting with someone, or I'm out there in a normal world, I'd be out there talking to people right now and
Yeah.
out of the office, but unfortunately, not with COVID.
Yeah.
But during tax season, usually the last couple of months in tax season, I'm full on, and I pretty much live here.
I was going to say, how many during tax season, how many hours a day would you say that you work? And I'm guessing you're probably going to say it's probably easier to tell you how many hours I don't work.
So it's so true. It varies. It depends if I have other tax preparers that are working for me, or but I'm usually here because to me I own it. I need to be here, or I need to be close to it. So even if I'm not here, it's usually for a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm usually always here. And this year we were able to do taxes online, so that helped. That we
Yeah.
had a whole new portal where we were able to communicate and get taxes done without having to worry about for people not worrying about whether or not they want to come in. People did drop-offs. They literally stood at the door and said, "Here, Dawn, here you go."
I think that's what I
Like,
did
yeah,
the first time, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's whatever's easier for someone. What we're going through is so unprecedented, at least in my lifetime, that I'm glad I'm able to offer different options to people to help them at least meet their obligations with the IRS.
In a typical year, do you hire seasonal employees,
Mhm.
or are they only seasonal, or do you have people all year? How does that work?
Usually I hire for the tax season seasonal, but as I get into different lines of business, then I'm hopefully going to be able to keep people on full time doing different things.
Payroll, for instance, because that's a year-round thing, right?
Yeah, payroll, insurance,
Mm-hmm.
even tax resolution, which I'm hoping to get into as soon as I get my one more test done, and I'll be able to do that. So there's a lot of different things that I'm hoping to be able to bring, but it's got to be the right person, the right person, the
Sure.
right time.
It's interesting because I just have in my head this certain idea, and I wouldn't necessarily think that you would venture out into payroll and insurance and different things like that. And that's just shows my lack of knowledge, because I've always kind of thought of something you do sort of as a seasonal job, not sort of like landscaping. That doesn't happen in the winter, you know and I kind of thought that what you do would be seasonal. So for you to be able to you know put your hat in different areas is a really great thing.
Yeah, and some of these things I didn't think all went together, but as the longer I've been doing it, I see how it makes sense. I mean, with the Affordable Care Act, we became involved in insurance. We had to ask a lot of questions. I knew nothing about insurance when I first started, and all of a sudden we had to ask people whether or not they had insurance.
Totally makes
And
sense. Yeah,
and then bookkeeping, it rolls into doing taxes. That one is the
absolutely.
easiest because helping people, because anytime a business owner really needs to understand their books. I'm always hopping on that, because I think it's important to know where your money's going, how it's being spent, and how much money you're making. I hate to see people that are constantly losing money and don't have an idea that they're losing it just for their own sake and knowledge.
Definitely. Absolutely. It's, the old saying, knowledge is power.
It's true. It is so true.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So here's another one. Interesting question. What advice would you give to a younger version of yourself? Say when you were just graduating high school, with the knowledge you have now?
The knowledge I have now, that's a good one. Don't sweat the small stuff.
That's awesome.
If you look back and I think of all the stupid things I did when I was that age, you get so freaked out about something that really, in the grand scheme of things, means nothing. And it goes, and before you know it, it's gone and you forgot about it.
Yep.
But in the moment, it's spend time with family, just enjoy everything while you have, because it's life. You never know.
You're right, though. I think when we're younger, we do tend to elevate situations to a more dramatic stage than they really need to be.
And especially, they're usually about pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
You're elevating something that in the grand scheme of things, nobody cares. It's gone.
Okay, so not sweating the small stuff, what keeps you up at night?
My clients, making sure I did everything I could to give them the best service they can get.
That's awesome. That's a great answer. I like that.
It's true, though. You can ask her.
Yep. No, I
run through them in my head sometimes and make sure that, especially if there's one that, I'm like, okay, did I do it right? But we always do a second review of returns in the office, so that helps the return part. But it's not so much doing the tax return, it's to make sure I wasn't missing something when I was trying to help them. It could be taxes, it could be anything else. Sometimes it's not even tax related.
I absolutely understand, because I'm the same way, because I absolutely want to do the best job, give the best service, and I don't want to disappoint my clients ever. So I absolutely get that. What have you sacrificed in your life to get to where you are now?
If I look back, one of the big things I sacrificed was spending time with my son when he was growing up. Single parent, gotta do what you gotta do, but those were the days I wish I could go back and fix.
Yeah. I've heard that before. It's like nobody ever says when they're on their deathbed, nobody ever says, gee, I really wish I would have spent more time at the office. Nobody ever says that.
But as you're going through it, you don't really realize it. It's just sort of what
you just plug it along. Yeah.
So I guess that's why we become grandparents. Because then we go complete opposite when the grandkids are around.
That's what I hear. I'm not there yet, but
I have two, so I can honestly say yes, that's so true. My girls are spoiled.
Oh, there was something else I had, and it just left my brain. Oh, gee. I know. So what do you think in the next 5 years? And this is obviously speculation too, because we don't know what changes, further changes COVID is going to bring or anything like that. But where do you see your business 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I'm hoping to have a couple of different locations.
That's awesome. So in that process, you'll definitely need to find someone who can be like your right-hand person and manage for you, right?
Mhm.
So that's,
Yep.
we're just putting that out to the universe right now.
When that right
person's
person
gonna
comes
come on.
along,
Yep.
that's what I'm looking for. Someone that can and that wants to do that.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. So what I'm going to say, when that happens, will you stay where you are, or do you think you'll make your home at a different location?
This would probably stay my home, but I'm sure I'll be going to other ones as well, just
Mhm.
because I'm a hands-on kind of owner. So I don't see myself. If I find the right person, I'm not gonna want to tie their hands, but I'm just gonna want to know what goes on in my
Absolutely.
offices and just make sure customers are happy and that's make sure things are done the way they should be done.
That sounds
It's just finding finding the people that really want to do that. Because I was always a person that I worked for a couple of companies one company in particular, that they were looking to grow. And I thought that was the most fun part of the job, was trying to help the business grow, even though it wasn't my business and I wasn't getting any more money for working for them. But I thought it was fun. It was a challenge every day of trying to figure out ways we could go after new business. So,
and it's gratifying when milestones are met, right?
yeah, I think it's
Very
it
gratifying.
wasn't the money so much. It was the challenge. I loved going to the office, especially when I had to go from here to Watertown every day. It
Ugh.
was a challenge of, okay, we got to get this done. I would stay late working on stuff just to make sure it was perfect, just to get it out. And when we would get a grant or something and we received the award, I would be as excited as the scientist.
Nice.
Like, oh, we got it. I thought that was the most favorite part of my job, was doing that.
That's pretty awesome.
So hopefully I can find someone that likes to do that as well, because I think there's a lot of opportunity within this whole Liberty system.
I have no doubt that you will find someone like that, somebody you really get along with really well and just work together with. I have no doubt you'll find someone like that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just out there. I just haven't seen them yet. That's all.
Yep. Yep. And you never know. You may have already met them. They're just not at that point yet.
That's so true. That's true.
So that's pretty awesome. Well, we're just about at the hour mark already, which
Oh, wow.
I know.
Well, we do that when I start talking to you anyhow.
Well, I
We
really
always lose track of time.
I appreciate that though, because that I always want people to feel comfortable, so I'm glad we were finally able to do this. It's amazing how sometimes when we're planning this, stuff happens sometimes, and life happens, technical difficulties happen, and sometimes we get discouraged, like, gee, maybe we shouldn't do this. But I'm glad we persevere.
Yeah.
And so anybody watching, if you have any questions for Dawn, if you want to reach out to her, let me know. I will. Do you have a Facebook business page? I forget.
I do. You'd have to look it up, Liberty Tax in Franklin.
Okay, so I will tag you in the comments of this post, and just let me know if you guys want to reach out to Dawn, and I will get you her contact information. And I just want to say thanks again so much for spending the time with me.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
I know you're busy, and I'm just so glad to do this. I really love this, and I hope that people have gotten to know you a little better. So that's really my goal, is to get to know local business owners. So thanks for spending.
Oh, I love it. And I just want to give a shout out to anybody that's thinking about hiring Julie. She's wonderful.
Well, thank you for that.
Well, we worked together on selling a property, and she made it so easy. So I want to send my shout out to Julie and thank you for that.
Thank you. So, yeah, that's it. I'm just, this is really great. So enjoy the rest of your day and work toward that next glamping trip.
Yes.
And we will talk soon. Thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you. Take care.